Bonjour à toutes et tous, vous écoutez First Print, votre podcast comics préféré pour une nouvelle émission du format Super Friends. C'est dans cette émission qu'on va à la rencontre des personnes qui font vivre la pop culture et la culture comics par leur travail au quotidien. On est littéralement dans les rues d'Angoulême pour réaliser cette interview avec Pornsak Pichetshote et Alexandre Tefenkgi pour parler notamment de The Good Asian qu'on a eu le plaisir de primer à nos premiers First Print Awards. Les deux auteurs étaient invités par Comics Initiative sur le salon et donc on ne pouvait pas manquer cette occasion pour aller leur parler de leur bande dessinée. Le générique va se lancer et ensuite nous revenons dans cette interview tout en anglais. So it was my short introduction, but Alexandre, it was just nice things, right?
Yes.
Yes. So it's really a pleasure to have you here in Angoulême. It's such a pleasure to have you here also face to face after we awarded you for the Good Asian. It was such a great comic book. So I'm really happy also that it got nominated at the fourth selection. So how are you doing, guys? Pornsak, Alexandre.
I think we're doing good. I think I'm still jet lagged, but I'm still getting through it. It's my first time in Angoulême, so I'm trying to absorb as much as I can. Everyone tells me that Saturday is the crazy busy day, and it is not disappointed in being crazy and busy.
Yeah, but for me, it's not the first time. I've been here, like, I think it was 10 years ago, like about 10 years ago. And it's changed a bit, I would say. The booths and the structure of the festival has changed a bit since the last time, but mostly the atmosphere, the ambience, and the people, like the friends and editors, still the same. So no surprise on that side.
That might be a little bit older, 10 years older. For
Yeah. In between, I had a kid, so that's fine.
There are some things that change a little bit. But since I already spoke with Pornsak 2 years ago about Infidel, so he did his own introduction. So I advise my listeners to go back to this previous podcast. But we didn't speak with you yet. So could you introduce yourself a little bit?
Okay, so my name is Alexandre Tefenkgi. So I started my career working for the French and Belgian market. I started publishing pages in the Spirou magazine. And then I signed up my first contract with Bamboo Édition, and my first book was Tranquille Courage. From then on, I published in the same publishing house for about 10 years, and after that, I wanted to change I wanted to change everything. I wanted to have the more freedom and more adventures in the narration world. And when I quit France, the last book I made was Jean Florette, and Jean Florette is a book with a lot of constraint, because it's an author that is really well known, and the legacy was demanding for me to work in a certain structure, and I wanted something else at that point of in my life, and I thought, yes, why not try to the US, because I would be able to try new visual concepts, try new things in the narration and in my style and graphism. So I went to the US, where I met Cliff Chang, and he introduced me to Skybound, where I started my first book, my first comic in the US, and it was Outpost Zero with Sean Kelly McKeever.
And so you mentioned that you wanted more freedom. Is it really that you felt that the French publication market is like freedomless, or I don't know how to say it?
I think it's I wouldn't say freedomless. I would say safer.
Okay.
Because I think in the US they take more risk in what they publish. Mostly I'm talking about Image. I don't know about Marvel or DC, because I'm not really familiar with those publishing house, but Image is the publishing house that is a reference for me, and that's where you can really shine as a person, as an individual, I think. Yes.
Okay, so it's also a very broad question we ask every artist. That what would you say are your influences in your style?
My influences, wow! My influences they go from Asterix and Obelix to Jiro Taniguchi, to Christopher Bacalo, many things. I'm not bound to a country or to a medium like that would be manga, BD or comics. I'm reading everything, so I'm a bit of everything.
And was it hard for a French artist to go into the US market? Were there like I don't know stereotypes? No, were you stereotyped a little bit, or
you know what the French market is like? So you know that the pace of a French author is about 7 to 8 pages a month, and when you go to the US and you have to do 22 pages in 6 weeks, it's quite the split. But to be honest, I was really terrified. I thought, can I manage? Can I adapt to this new market? And can I tell my story without having to compromise on what I want? And I think it worked so far. I'm still here, so it works so far.
So the most obvious question is how did this project came to be? And so it was Cliff Chiang who put you guys together, right?
Yeah. Me and Cliff had been old friends since my time at Vertigo. And so when I had this pitch, I kind of brought it to Cliff being like, do you know of anyone as a very well-respected artist in yourself who might be sort of the right fit for this? I knew I wanted someone Asian because I didn't want to micromanage all these details. And at the time, Cliff was like, no, I don't, but I'll keep an eye out. And then as luck would have it, Alex had just wrapped Outpost Zero and came to Cliff and was saying, hey, I just wrapped Outpost Zero. Do you know of any jobs that are available? And Cliff was like, I think I have the perfect thing for you. And then he introduced the two of us, and it's been swimming since then.
Yeah.
So what was the original idea for The Good Asian?
I mean, the original idea came from my father had passed away, and I had he was obsessed with Chinese culture, and so part of my process of dealing with that was getting involved in the things that he was involved with, and I did more research on Chinese history. And because I am so American-centric, the thing that I was the most fascinated about was the Chinese Exclusion Act, the immigration bans keeping Chinese laborers from coming into America from 1882 to 1943. So that I found fascinating, and I found fascinating that as an Asian American, I didn't know about it. And then because I have a pop culture obsessed mind, it was interesting to me that in the 30s, you had characters like Charlie Chan and Mr. Moto and Mr. Wong Detective that were very popular at the time, where technically they couldn't enter the country. And so that's when this started. Of like, ooh, maybe be interesting to revisit that archetype while acknowledging that history and using it as a way to explore what it is to be American in general, but specifically at that time.
We remember that there was this whole thing about the Muslim ban.
Yeah.
It was happening in the US too. And on the plus side, you had the cold relationships between the US and China.
Yeah.
Did that factor in any way?
Absolutely. I think one of the big reasons why I wanted to talk about this originally was, I had my previous book, Infidel, was about a Muslim protagonist. So, hearing all this stuff happening and then it would end up happening about the Muslim ban, I had kind of an interest to talk about like, well, what happens after the ban? How do you, once you tell a certain group of people that they can't be here, what is the back half of that equation look like? And so to have something in the past, in America's past, to kind of be the filter to look at that became an entrance point to do it. And then after when we announced the book, there was a spike in anti-Asian crimes all across America, attacks all across America. So that became another thing that kind of influenced so there was a lot of contemporary history and American history that was sort of influencing how we were attacking the themes of the book.
And did the current events also change maybe the script in the making?
Yeah, they expanded some stuff. I think most significantly, when we originally announced we were a 9-issue maxi series as opposed to a 10-issue maxi series, and the response to the first issue was so strong, it allowed us to expand it a little bit. And one of the places I realized was that because there was all these anti-Asian attacks happening, I want to say it was around issue 7 of the book, maybe 7, 8, I can't remember, but it gave me the chance to expand things, and I think it was 7, where we talk about like what was happening in Chinatown after a rash of anti-Asian attacks and what Chinatown looked like, and so much of that was drawn from what was happening at the time in 2021.
Alexandre, did any of these themes resonate with you, and were they a reason for you to get to these books?
Yeah, because more than just looking for a project. I was talking to Cliff Chang that I was trying to go back to my roots, that I learned that I had Vietnamese roots. So that's why I went to live in Vietnam for 3 years. And when I talked to Cliff, I thought, yes, sorry. When I talked to Cliff, I talked about the discovery of this part of my identity and what it meant to me. And like naturally, it told me, there's something, someone that I should introduce you to. Yeah.
You were also talking about the Charlie Chan thing, and you chose to set this book in the 1930s, which conveys two things. First of all, it reminds us of all the noir fiction we already have, and on the other hand, you use like actual real history settings.
Yeah.
So how did you find the balance between what you wanted to say about America then and the genre of fiction that had to be like contrapunted with the art, etc.?
Yeah, it was tricky. It's funny. It ends up being more intuitive than I think that one would think. I know and so it's also hard to remember sort of which came first, the chicken or the egg. I know one of the things I wanted to talk about was the ban. And even though the ban happened in 1882, because there was the argument, the thought of like, oh, should we do this right when the ban happened? And in 1882, America was still the Wild West. And then you could see it in shows like Warrior. It would have been a Western. And the thing that was more interesting to me was to take it towards the end of the ban, because America still kind of looked like America, you know? Everyone dressed differently, the cards were different, but it was still very relatable. And I wanted to explore what this band looked like in an America that was not that foreign looking than what we experience now. So that led to the time period. And then it became, you know, once you got to Charlie Chan and all that, and you're like, oh, well, of course this is noir. Like, you know, it could have been a detective story anyway, but of course it'd be noir, because all the themes of noir sort of resonate so well with an immigration story. And so then it was become, you know, and I'll be honest, I'm actually surprised you don't see more of this. I'm trying to think, I think at the time there was a little bit, but immigrant noir to me feels like such a natural extension. And I think when we were putting the book out, it felt like there was more of that seemingly happen. And I've actually been surprised we haven't seen more of that since then. But, you know, in this time now where, you know, being a private detective is so different because you have the internet, you have all this sort of stuff. Like when you're doing those kind of stories, you have to put up so many barriers to make the story not just about someone picking up a phone and like going on the web and searching for something, but when you're dealing with immigrants, so many of those problems are sort of baked in. So there's a different type of immigrant noir you could do sort of present day with that. But a lot of the themes like very naturally gelled with each other. So it became an exciting thing to explore.
So Alexandre, was it hard maybe, or did you take some time to do researches also to do the scenery? Did you watch old movies? Did you get, because you have to convey also the noir atmosphere, but also try to be accurate within the historic setting?
Yeah, of course I watched many movies, many noir movies. LA Confidential is one of them, but the groundwork is from Pornsak, because he did all the documentation prior to giving the script to me. So when we were into a sequence, a specific sequence, he had the documentation that was coming with it, and it was really like a smooth sailing for me. So yeah.
This was, it wasn't our first project for the American market, but it's really grounded into the American aesthetic. You know, like I was thinking about Eduardo Risso while reading it. Did you maybe take specific influences from what you could find on the crime American comics scene?
I would say I didn't want to look too much to what was before me, because I didn't want to be stressed. So I tried to make it my own, and trying to make the noir genre fit with my style, and having something that would look, it's really close. Okay, that would look authentic, and that would fit the project well.
And a lot of that, I would say too, like Alex very naturally sort of gravitated towards that. And partially that was because one of the reasons why Alex got the job was that like me and my editor Will were so influenced by Eduardo Risso, by Darwin Cook. And so a lot of it, I remember when we came to this, was just like, who's the Asian Darwin Cook? Like, who's working that? And then when we saw Alex, it's just like, oh, we don't have to tell Alex to do. Alex can just do Alex and not pay attention to any of all that stuff because what he does is so naturally there.
So does this mean that you scout for artists sometime for the projects also to
Yeah,
have the good look?
We spent a long time looking for the art. It ended up working great because Alex was available when he was available. But for the longest time, we spent a lot of time looking for artists, and which was great for Asian artists. Like most of them were booked up and sort of doing stuff already and had long projects. So so it took us a while of looking. And then when Cliff told us about Alex, we're like, oh my God, thank God nobody else was available, because like Alex is a perfect person available, but he was only available at the moment that he was available. So.
Yeah, it's like I said, this book is all about timing.
Yeah.
And did you have also like for establishing characters and places? Like, did you do a Bible of some sort?
Not a Bible per se, but we had character concepts that we built, and we talked about it back and forth to find the right visual for arc and for the setting.
Yeah, and it's also quite I think it's a beautiful book.
Thank you.
It has this sort of charged atmosphere, which taps in the fantasy you can have surrounding the Chinese culture of the time. You know, the opium and the triads and etc. How did you work to convey, both of you, to convey this specific thing that can either be associated with the Yellow Parish? I don't know how to translate that into English, and both again a convention of specifically the American imagination when they look at Asian culture.
I think the script was well written and clear for me, because
you're just hiding behind Pornsak's scripts.
No,
but you did the work. You did you drew those pages.
Yes,
also.
I drew those pages, but for me, I was not like a fan of noir. It was not my go-to comic and I learned and had an image and an interpretation that was clear because the script was there. I couldn't make it out of thin air. How it would feel like in the club, for example. I don't know what to say. That the script was clear enough for me to imagine and to picture what it would look like.
So was it like a detailed script?
It was a detailed script, and when we were working on the storyboard phase, there was also back and forth. So at this moment, it was quite already set.
I would say too that I'm a big believer that there's this thing in directing for film that casting is 80% of the work. That if you cast correctly, you don't have to direct so much in terms of actors' performances. And I think one of the reasons why, a lot of the stuff, and it's one of the reasons why we looked at Darwin Cook, it's one of the reasons why we looked at Eduardo Risso, is that's one path that noir comics take. A lot of noir comics is more realistic. It's more, it's more photorealistic, photo reft and all that kind of stuff. And one of the reasons why we wanted to go with something a little bit more cartoony was there was this feeling like I had just come from working with Aaron Campbell in Infidel, and he's much more of a photorealistic, he has reference that he does. And I specifically we didn't want to do that for The Good Asian because we didn't want people to get more focused on the dirt and the grit, which I think sometimes you do when you're looking at crime, but we wanted to have them focus more on the people. And I think one of the things that Alex naturally brings to it, and he does it without having to think about it, is the empathy, the nobility of the characters, the fact that there is a romance to these characters despite everything that's happening around them. That was really important for us in this book. And it was one of the reasons why we wanted to go in the direction of a more stylized, one of the things that Alex brings to it is such a distinct style. and that was, we wanted us to lean more towards style than necessarily, you know, the book, the writing of the book is so grounded in detail and history. The art of the book shouldn't have, and we want to be free of that in a little bit.
Yeah, I want to add that we talked about that also in video chat. That my belief is, for me, the art should complement the script in a way that is not too visible. Like when you read a book, like a novel, you don't focus on the words, right? You focus on the story, and I don't want to add. I want my art to be. To support the script and not to put the light on the drawing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I want my art.
Your art is at the service of.
Yes, I want my art to be almost invisible. Invisible in the good way, not invisible like you don't care. Invisible in the good way, so that you are immersed in the story and you don't see that you have a book in your hand. That if I can achieve that, that's my goal. Yeah.
And the irony for that is, on my end, I'm trying to write scripts that give Alex space to have artistic flourishes and gives him space to experiment. So a very early page in the book, for anyone who's read it, is there's a page that just says the next day, and it's 3 panels, and you have images within the words of the next day, and that page is very important for the book because it's meant to be an intention of purpose. It's meant to say style is a very big character in this book, because there is a world where that whole page can happen in a 3-word caption, and if you take that page away, the story still goes. You don't need it to tell the story, but why it's there is to introduce one of the big characters of the book, which is the style, and it's meant to say this is a stylish book you're reading, despite all the sort of stuff that is happening. And so it's always interesting when me and Alex talk, because he'll talk a lot about how, you know, I don't want to draw too much attention to myself. I just want to be out the story. And then when I'm writing the scripts, like, all right, but how can I have people notice how good Alex is? And like, what can I do in my scripts to give him some room to grow? So it's very much a back and forth between us as we're working, and it's always kind of about the story.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because we just had Jesse Lonergan on an interview, who is an artist that takes a lot of space, obviously, quite literally, actually. This thing like talent scouting and really detailed scripts and this back and forth, it seems like you're still an editor in a way.
Yes, I am. I will always be an editor at heart. It's such a big part of my process. And it's also what I love. You know, it's why I love comics. I love artists, and I love working with artists. I love talking to artists. You know, one of the things I got from Alex that I brought to working with Jesse is that we talk every other week while we're working on a book. And ideally, if I'm on a long-term project with anyone, I kind of want to work that way. I want to talk every other week, just so we understand. Like, and it's not even about the book, because like when we talk, we rarely talk about work. If we talk about life for about an hour, then in the last 5 minutes, like, oh, we got to talk about that thing with the thing, and then we wrap it up very quickly. But yeah, I think part of it is just, hopefully you see on the page that we are having a good time working together, not just having a good time separately, but having a good time working together as a stuff.
Yeah, I just want to add, I want to be clear, that I want to be invisible, but I want to be beautifully invisible.
yeah.
Right? I'm here to make it also the script shine and to take care of the visual. So yeah, it is a fine line to find, to strike, to be visual, but not too much, and that's what I want to. That's what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we didn't talk about the coloring that much. It's Lilo Ridge, right? Yeah. Again, how did this relationship, this collaboration went? Because again, it's a really the color is really expressive in this book. I don't think you've worked that much into coloring yourself.
Yeah, I was colorist here for the French market. But when you asked me if I wanted to color, right?
Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah, and I said no, it would be too much work.
Yeah.
So you brought Lee and another colorist, if I remember well.
I think we brought like 3 people that we thought would be interesting with your style.
Yeah,
and you picked Lee out of
and when I saw Lee, I just had like this. Thunder, yes, it's this guy.
yeah.
Yes, Thunderstruck. It's this guy. This guy is so smart. Let's work with him.
The thing that Alex won't say that I feel very comfortable about is that, like, I think Alex's art in black and white is so strong, it's actually very hard to color because everything is there. And I think for a lot of colorists, when everything is there, there's this temptation of like, what can I do to match it? What can I add? And I think the thing that makes Lee so smart is he's so experienced. He feels very comfortable letting the, art just be there. And then he's so good at atmosphere, and he's, And so that's what he added. He took the atmosphere that was already there in Alex's inks and just really heightened them. And some of his choices he made are so unconventional but smart. And I think one of the ways his and I think part of the thing that we were kind of going back to with this noir is that, again, most people when they think of noir, they think of gritty, grounded, very photorealistic. But if you look at the roots of noir, so much of it was experimental, and we try to get back to that sense in the page layouts and the storytelling style. And Lee really kind of leaned into that as well. And so oftentimes the way Lee would look at it is like, oh, this is punk rock noir. And he would like give a little bit of that edge to it when he was coloring it.
But I've got a question right now, saying all of that. Why did you add colors to The Good Asian? Why didn't you publish in black and white directly, especially for a noir book?
It's a good question. It's a good you know, it's funny. I don't know if I ever considered it. And I think maybe, and I don't say this for a fact because I don't know if I even thought about it to that degree, but I think one of the things we wanted to do was to use a lot of the specific comic book language to do noir. And that's why a lot of the tricks we have there, like you see a lot of detective stories in television and film. And so they have a ton of tricks to show you how to be a detective in TV and film. But one of the things that I was surprised looking at it is that there's a lot less of that as in comics, you know, even though detective stories, you know, it's all the way to Batman, there's all these detective stories, but there's not a lot of like using the language and grammar of comics to let you lets you go through of how a detective thinks and how they see the world. So I think part of the reason was color is just one more tool that comics has. So it didn't feel logical to omit any sort of tool. We wanted to use all of them.
Yeah, but I was thinking, but maybe for the sequel we could because we're always in we evolving, right?
Yeah.
So maybe for the sequel we could think about some sequences just in black and white and maybe tones.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to color.
Yeah.
Just something popping in my mind. It's all about the scripts. If you have the script, I have more ideas.
Yeah.
So you're just saying that the sequel will be better just because of this podcast, right?
Yes.
Because of this idea. Yes.
We were also saying that if we fire Lee Loweridge, the book will be better. Is also what we're saying.
Something that you've mentioned, Alexandre, and also you, Pornsak. In the United States, obviously, there has been a much more advanced discourse on representation of Black people because there's this history they have on stage. Do you feel like maybe with The Good Asian, you're trying maybe to say to other Asian creators, we can ourselves take our share of history from this country? Because there hasn't been that many Asian superheroes. There hasn't been, apart from the guys from Hong Kong or China, that many action stars. So maybe it's a way in that direction.
I would love for that to be the case. I think primarily for me was, you know, in comics specifically, there's a lot of Asian stories, but there's very few Asian American stories. And so one of the things I definitely wanted to do with The Good Asian was to find uniquely Asian American stories and tell that. And if it encourages other creators to do that as well, that would be wonderful. And I would love it because that was certainly where it started for me. Was there were so many things that were uniquely Asian American that you weren't going to find if you take a story and set it in Asia or take Asian people coming to America. And that's what I wanted it to be, a story about what it was like to be a second generation Asian American, and specifically find a story that dug into that a little bit.
No,
I'm not American.
You're
so.
not American, obviously. And again, so that's not again a question for you, but do you also work on this anthology, which is about taking well-established characters like John Constantine and James Bond, etc., and putting them in a minority, for lack of a better word, place?
Yeah.
There's this whole debate right now in comics, but not specifically in the whole American society about how to do comics that are, I'm quoting, woke, to say the big word. You seem to be doing it okay. I mean, you didn't have any pressure or maybe bad commentary about this. How do you think you can maneuver this problem?
Well, I think a lot of times when people are responding to what you say, quote unquote, woke stories and all that sort of stuff, it's a lot of people doing it badly. And which is, there's tons of people doing it well. But I think the corporations, a lot of the times the publishers, all right, put the wrong foot forward when it comes to that sort of stuff, and they view it a little bit more cynically. And if you're talking about what I do differently than them, one thing maybe is that the way I look at it is I don't look at it as charity. I don't look at it as something we should do to be a moral publisher or anything like that. It's quite the opposite. I'm looking at it very selfishly. And one of the selfish ways I'm looking at it is the fact that, you know, there are pockets of the world, the pockets of America specifically, that we're not taking the money out of their wallets directly. And so how can we take money out of their wallets more directly? It's just the fact that, you know, there's a lot of, you know, in the Good Asian started from this place of, I worked at a comic book store. I know how many Asian Americans walk into a comic book store. It is crazy to me, the number of Asian Americans that walk into a comic book store and there's nothing specifically marketed to take their money. So that's where the Good Asian started. It's just like, there's all this money that you're just kind of leaving there. And it's because you think that the America looks like a very specific thing. You think it looks white and it doesn't. And, you know, and part of the story of America is realizing that to what degree that is and is not the case. So a lot of the stuff for Horizon and Infidel and all that, and the Good Asian, is just realizing, you know, it's not, to me, telling stories with more minority characters is just more realistic than, you know, if you look at, you know, and I don't want to pick on any comic, but if I look at a comic and I see just white characters, that's very unrealistic to me. It's also very irrelevant to me in terms of, so by taking characters who are a little bit from different places, that makes, to me, it takes things and makes it more relevant. It makes horror more relevant. It makes it more modern in that case. And to me, that is when it works, it's the idea of, we're not doing it to satisfy these groups. We're doing it to make our stories more modern, to tell more modern horror, to tell more modern film noir, to tell, you know, it's an exploration in modernity more than anything else.
Yeah. So you've been nominated for an award here in Angoulême for this book. It's kind of crazy for us. I mean, us journalists, because comic book in France is such a tiny scene. It really spells to the quality of this album, I think, which actually won a first print award again. How do you feel about this sudden success or critical success? Not critical, I mean, a review success.
Yeah.
That follows the fact that you already won a Nice Now award.
Yeah, for me, firstly, I was surprised by the big positive welcoming of our book in the French market, because for a while I wanted the Good Asian to be translated in French, but we had to wait for the right people to come in and to be interested in our book. And my mother always asked me, so when am I going to read your book?
It took quite some time, actually.
Yeah, it's a bit. And I told her, just be patient. It's gonna happen. So now that it's in France and the readership is really happy with the book, and we had the nomination for the Fauve, and the people I meet here in Angoulême are really positive about the book and give us really good feedback. I'm thinking that it was also made for France, and there was not really a barrier between US and France for the crime noir. It felt kind of natural. Now that I see the public, it felt kind of natural.
Yeah, I'm just so impressed by the job Mikhail and Comics Initiative have done with the whole thing. And it's one of the reasons why I'm grateful that I'm here, because when you have a book and you do it in America, you hear about like the foreign rights and they put it out, and you always just kind of assume it's one book that gets slipped into a shelf and you just move along your way. So to be here at Angoulême, to have so many people have heard about the book and to know the book and to have complimented and to go through shops in Paris to see the book front of display and so many of them, it's been kind of mind-blowing. I still haven't quite grasped it yet. Someone had sort of said they bought a book from us at the table, and she had bought it for her boyfriend who was in the lounge that they have. So you have copies of the book. and she had said, oh yeah, he started reading it and he became obsessed with it, and he had to, she sent me out here to buy it. And so and I part of me wanted to ask, like, what did he like so much about it in the first couple of pages that he wanted to buy more? Because it's such a foreign concept to me. It's just that the book has traveled to the degree it's traveled. So I feel very grateful.
And so you mentioned that there's a sequel in the making. What can you tell us about?
Oh, not much.
Well, spill it out.
Yeah, I can tell you we're working on it. And that's pretty much all I'll tell you.
I have a question. So a nice narrow word, Angoulême. How do you top it? That's my question.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I have no idea. That's why it's taking so long. I have no idea how to answer that question.
That's funny because yesterday we talked about it and we said, is it the peak?
Yeah, I know. We might have peaked. So I don't know. We'll see. The strategy right now is take a while for the next book, but people don't remember how much they like the first one. And so maybe we can skate through.
But it does still mean that you still have ideas for this character.
Oh, yeah,
for this setting.
Yeah.
So you still have, and you might still have something to say about Asian culture and Asian representation.
Yeah. We'll see, how long the audience's attention will last, but there's definitely more. There's always been a multi-book plan for the good Asian and the things it can explore. We'll see if we get a chance to explore all of it.
And the obvious question, the elephant in the room also is, are you licensing the rights to a studio?
I am working with, the book is optioned, yes.
Okay. And so I suppose last question. Do you have any other ideas that you'd like to explore together or not for your future projects?
I think if we talked about it, maybe, but we're so caught up with the Good Asian and how we're going to work on it and what we're going to bring to the sequel that we haven't thought about.
Yeah, we haven't really thought about it. I mean, I can, I can think of like other projects like, oh, this could be cool for me and Alex to work on. But then the first thing comes, it's just like, oh, we're barely getting the Good Asian out. Like one step at a time.
Yeah. The thing is, right now we are focusing on 2025 is the Good Asian, and I also have my graphic novel that I'm writing and drawing at Oni Press. So for me, it's my 2025. It will be the Good Asian and my graphic novel.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure discussing with you.
Thank you, and it was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Et si vous appréciez ce podcast, n'hésitez pas de le faire savoir en le partageant sur les réseaux sociaux à la fois pour faire découvrir le podcast, mais aussi pour faire découvrir The Good Asian avec la voix de celles et ceux qui le font. Et surtout, s'il vous reste des sous après l'avoir pris en librairie, vous pouvez nous soutenir sur notre Tipeee. Je vous remercie à toutes et tous de nous avoir écoutés. On se dit à très bientôt pour le prochain podcast. Salut!